The cave was dark and silent, hidden deep inside the mountains where no ordinary man dared to walk. Cold winds howled outside, carrying the smell of fire and steel. But inside the cave there was a different kind of warmth. In the center of the cave lay 3 large eggs glowing faintly like pieces of the moon. Their shells shimmered with soft colors, blue, silver, and golden red. They were the heart of the mother dragon's life, her only treasure, her reason to fight and her reason to stay alive. The mother dragon lay curled around the eggs, her scales shining in the dim light. Her breath was heavy and her eyes were tired, but her spirit was strong. She knew the night was not ordinary. Something was coming, something she had feared for many years. She pressed her wings tighter around her eggs as if she could hide them from the whole world. The sound of her heart was steady, but in her mind she kept repeating one thought. They must live, even if I do not. Outside, the mountains were not peaceful anymore. The distant sound of marching feet echoed through the valley. Metal clashed against metal and angry voices rose like a storm. An army was climbing the rocky path toward her cave. These men were not hunters or travelers. They were soldiers trained to kill. They carried sharp spears, burning torches, and cruel hearts. Their leader had promised them gold and glory if they could bring back the head of the last mother dragon. The dragon heard them long before they reached the cave. Her ears caught every sound, the crunch of boots on stone, the hiss of fire, the shouts of men. Her eyes narrowed and smoke slipped from her nostrils. She could fight, yes. She had fought before. But this time she was not alone. The eggs had not yet hatched and they needed her warmth, her song, her protection. She lowered her head close to them and whispered a soft humming sound, almost like a lullaby. The eggs glowed brighter, comforted by the familiar voice of their mother. For a moment the cave felt calm. The lullaby was full of love, carrying promises that only a mother could give. Promises of safety, of life, of a future. But the calm did not last long. From the entrance of the cave, a beam of light appeared. A torch flame flickered against the stone walls. Shadows of men stretched across the ground as they moved closer. The dragon raised her head, her golden eyes shining in the darkness. She knew the soldiers had found her. The leader of the men stopped at the cave's mouth. He stared into the darkness, and though he could not yet see her, he could feel her presence. The air grew heavy and hot, as if the cave itself was alive. His men hesitated, whispering to each other, their courage trembling in the face of the unknown. But the promise of treasure pushed them forward. They wanted dragon bones, dragon blood, dragon fire, for power, for weapons, for pride. The mother dragon did not move. She remained still, waiting, watching. Her tail slowly curled around the eggs like an unbreakable wall. Her wings pressed tighter against her sides, creating a barrier between her children and the world outside. She was a mountain of patience, but also a storm waiting to break. The soldiers stepped closer, their torches lighting up the rough stones of the cave. Sparks danced on the walls, chasing away the shadows. And then they saw them. 3 glowing eggs resting under the dragon's wings. Gasps escaped their mouths. Some stepped back in fear, while others stepped forward in greed. The leader raised his hand to silence them. His eyes glowed with triumph. There she is, he whispered. The last mother. And her treasure. The dragon let out a low growl that rumbled like thunder across the stones. Dust fell from the roof of the cave as the ground itself seemed to tremble. The soldiers froze, their torches shaking in their hands. The growl carried a warning, leave now or face death. But the men did not leave. Their greed was stronger than their fear. The dragon's eyes burned like molten gold. She could already taste the smoke in her throat, the fire building inside her chest. Yet for one last second she pressed her snout against the eggs again. The lullaby whispered from her lips, soft and fragile, as if she were saying goodbye. She knew the battle was coming, and she knew her strength might not be enough. But she also knew that her love was greater than fear, and her will was stronger than death. The soldiers raised their weapons. The cave filled with the sound of steel scraping against stone, men shouting, fire hissing. The dragon lifted her head high, her wings spreading wide, her shadow filling the entire cave like a storm cloud. The light of the torches seemed small compared to her great form. She was no longer silent, no longer still. She was ready. The last moment of calm vanished. The air shook with tension. The soldiers' hearts raced, and the eggs glowed brighter under her wings. Outside, the winds screamed against the mountains as if the world itself knew what was about to happen. The dragon's roar had not yet come, but it was close. The battle was about to begin. The cave still echoed with the sounds of marching feet outside, but inside, there was a fragile moment of peace. The mother dragon lowered her head again, her golden eyes glowing as she looked at her 3 eggs. They lay safely under her wings, shining softly in the darkness like little stars trapped inside stone shells. She breathed gently over them, warming them, whispering to them, as if they could already hear and understand her words. Her voice was not made of human speech, but of an ancient lullaby, a sound deep and low, filled with love. The eggs shimmered when her song touched them. The silver egg pulsed like a heartbeat, the blue one glowed like moonlight on water, and the golden red one flickered like fire in a storm. The dragon watched them with both sadness and hope. She knew the soldiers were close. She knew tonight would not end with her alive. But her lullaby was a promise to her children, a promise that they would see the world even if she could not be there to guide them. Her memory drifted back to long ago, when the world was different, when dragons were many, and the skies were filled with wings. She remembered flying with her kin, the clouds parting under their mighty shadows, the earth trembling with the sound of their roars. She remembered how powerful they had been, how free, but greed had poisoned mankind. The hunters came, the kings demanded trophies, and slowly, one by one, the dragons fell. Now she was the last mother. Her lullaby was not only for her children, it was the final song of her kind. The sound of steel striking stone reached the cave's entrance. Torches burned brighter, shadows grew longer. The dragon's voice grew softer, but it never stopped. The lullaby was her shield, wrapping her eggs in warmth that no weapon could break. She whispered to them stories they would never hear, dreams they would never see unless they survived. She told them in her song of the wide skies, of mountains taller than clouds, of rivers that shone like silver, and of the freedom of flight. The eggs trembled faintly, as if they were alive and listening. She could feel them moving inside, close to hatching. That gave her heart both joy and fear. If they were born too soon, they would not survive the cold world outside. They needed time. Time she did not have. Her wings tightened around them and her lullaby grew stronger. It was not just a song anymore. It was magic, ancient and deep. Her voice carried into the walls, into the ground, into the very air of the cave. The soldiers stopped at the entrance. Their leader raised his hand and the men stood still. The light of their torches flickered against the stone, but they could not see her clearly. All they heard was the strange, haunting song echoing inside. Some of them shivered. It was not the sound of any beast they had hunted before. It was not a growl or a roar. It was something older, something that touched their bones. For a moment, fear gripped them. The leader's face hardened. He whispered, "Do not fear. It is only a trick." He did not understand. He could not know that the lullaby was not meant for him, not meant for men at all. It was meant for life, for hope, for the future that lay inside 3 fragile eggs. The dragon's eyes closed for a moment. She let herself imagine what it would be like to see her hatchlings open their eyes for the first time, to hear their tiny roars, to watch them spread their wings. She imagined flying with them across the skies, teaching them the ways of their kind. For a heartbeat, she let herself believe she would live to see it. But the sounds of men breaking rocks at the entrance pulled her back to reality. Her heart was heavy, but her voice never faltered. The lullaby grew softer, gentler, filled with all the love she had left. She rubbed her snout against the eggs, leaving behind the scent of her fire, the warmth of her soul. She knew that even if she was gone, her children would carry her in them, in their blood, in their fire, and in this song. The men outside pushed forward. They had no patience for waiting. The cave shook as they broke more rocks, making the entrance wider. Soon they would rush in with fire and spears. The mother dragon opened her eyes and stared into the darkness beyond. Her lullaby turned into a whisper, a final promise. You will live. You will fly. You will remember me. The eggs glowed brighter now, their light filling the cave like tiny suns. The dragon lifted her head and turned toward the entrance. Her body was weak, but her spirit blazed like fire. She was ready to face them, ready to fight until her last breath. Yet even as she prepared for battle, her song did not stop. The lullaby continued, flowing like a river, carrying her love into the eggs. The soldiers shouted as they entered, their shadows long and sharp. The lullaby echoed louder, bouncing from wall to wall. It was the last thing her hatchlings would hear before the cave filled with fire and blood. It was their mother's promise, her strength, her heart. And though death waited for her, she sang still. Because for her, the lullaby was not only a goodbye, It was the beginning of life. The soldiers finally stepped into the cave. Their boots scraped against the stone floor, and their torches sent flickering shadows racing across the walls. The warm orange light touched the edges of the dragon's scales, making her look like a mountain of living fire. She did not move at first, but her eyes followed them, glowing like molten gold in the darkness. The men froze when they saw her. For a heartbeat, silence filled the cave, heavy and suffocating. The leader pushed his men forward. "Do not fear," he hissed, though his own voice shook. "She is only one beast. We are many." His words gave the soldiers courage, but deep inside their hearts, fear still lived. They had never seen such a creature before. Her wings were vast, folded tight against her body, yet even folded, they looked strong enough to cover the sky. Her claws dug into the stone, sharp and ready. Her chest rose and fell with each breath, and smoke curled from her nostrils like whispers of fire waiting to burst. The mother dragon lowered her head, her wings wrapping even tighter around her eggs. The glow from the shells lit up her underside, as if the life inside them was shining through her body. She growled, a deep rumble that shook the ground beneath the soldiers' feet. Dust fell from the cave's ceiling and small rocks rolled down the walls. The men tightened their grip on their spears and swords. Some wanted to run, but none dared to turn away. The promise of gold and glory chained them to their greed. Then it began. One soldier shouted and threw his spear. The weapon sliced through the air, its tip glowing in the torchlight. The dragon turned her head swiftly, and the spear shattered against her scales with a sharp clang. Sparks flew, and the soldier stumbled back in shock. The dragon roared. Her roar was like thunder breaking the sky apart. The torches trembled, the men covered their ears, and the sound seemed to rattle their bones. With that roar, the battle had started. The soldiers rushed forward, screaming to give themselves courage. Spears flashed, blades gleamed, and fire from the torches licked the walls. The dragon struck first. Her tail whipped through the air like a living whip of stone and muscle. It smashed against the soldiers, throwing them into the walls, knocking weapons from their hands. The cave shook with the force of her power. 2 men fell and did not rise again. Still more came. They thrust their spears at her, trying to pierce between her scales. A few found their mark, scratching her skin, drawing lines of blood. The dragon hissed in pain, but she did not retreat. She pulled her wings tighter around her eggs, refusing to let a single blade come near them. Every move she made was careful. Every step meant to keep the soldiers away from her children. Her fire built in her chest. She opened her mouth, and flames roared out, bright and fierce. The fire swallowed the cave in golden light, burning the air itself. The soldiers screamed as the flames chased them, their armor glowing red, their torches falling uselessly to the ground. Smoke filled the cave, thick and choking, yet still they did not stop. The promise of treasure made them blind to fear. The leader raised his sword, shouting, "Take her head! The eggs are ours!" His voice echoed over the chaos, cutting through the roar of fire and screams. The dragon's eyes locked onto him. She knew he was the heart of their courage. If he fell, perhaps the others would break. But reaching him was not easy. Too many men surrounded her, stabbing, cutting, shouting. Her claws scraped the stone, striking down one soldier after another. Her teeth snapped, crushing a spear in 2. Her tail slammed the ground, shaking the cave like an earthquake. But the soldiers pressed on, their numbers overwhelming her strength. Each strike she made killed or wounded, but each wound she took bled her life away little by little. She roared again, louder, angrier, but also weaker. The sound carried not just fury but also desperation. She could not let them pass. She could not let them touch her eggs. Her body shielded them. Her fire pushed the men back, but the soldiers were many and she was only one. One soldier slipped past her claws, rushing toward the glowing eggs. The dragon's heart clenched in terror. With a burst of speed, she swung her wing, slamming him against the wall before he could reach them. His torch fell near the eggs, flames licking at the ground. The dragon turned her head quickly, breathing fire to swallow the torch before it could burn her children. Smoke stung her eyes, but she did not stop fighting. The battle raged on, the cave filled with the clash of metal and the roar of fire. The soldiers shouted, the dragon answered with fury. The ground was stained with blood, the air thick with smoke. The eggs glowed brighter in the chaos, as if they felt their mother's fear and strength. But the dragon knew the truth. She was strong, but not endless. The soldiers were too many, and her body was already covered in wounds. Each movement grew heavier, each breath harder. Still, she fought on, her heart beating with only one purpose: protect the eggs. The cave shook again as she slammed another soldier aside. Her wings spread wide for a moment, filling the space with her shadow. She looked like death itself, blazing with fire and fury. Yet behind that fury was love, a love that burned brighter than her flames. The soldiers did not see it. They only saw treasure, but the eggs glowed under her wings, safe for now as their mother gave everything she had to keep them alive. The battle had just begun, and already the cave was drowning in fire and screams, and though she bled, though her body weakened, the dragon fought on. Because for her there was no choice. The eggs were her life, her soul, her final hope. She would burn the world itself before she let them fall. The cave was burning with fire and smoke. The mother dragon's roar still echoed, and the screams of soldiers mixed with the crack of stone and the hiss of flames. Her body was covered in wounds, blood dripping onto the floor, yet her wings still wrapped tightly around her eggs. She fought like a storm, but she knew the truth deep in her heart. She could not hold them back forever. The men kept coming, wave after wave, and her strength was slowly fading. In the middle of the battle, her eyes fell once more on her 3 glowing eggs. They pulsed with light, alive, waiting to hatch. Her heart broke at the thought of them falling into the hands of these men. She imagined them taken away, chained, slaughtered before they could ever open their eyes. The thought gave her both pain and power. She had to act. She had to save them, even if it meant she would not live to see them grow. She lowered her head close to the ground and pressed her claws against the stone. Beneath the cave floor lay something hidden, something only she knew. A tunnel carved long ago by her ancestors. It was a secret passage, a path that led deep under the mountains, away from the reach of men. It was not safe, not forever, but it was a chance, and a chance was all her children needed. The soldiers did not notice what she was doing. They were too busy striking, stabbing, shouting, trying to pierce her scales. She growled low and whispered her lullaby once more, but this time it was not just a song. It was a command, a guiding force. Her voice filled the cave, and the eggs glowed brighter in answer. The blue egg pulsed with soft light. The silver egg shone like starlight, and the golden red egg flickered like a flame. They seemed to understand her, as if they could feel the message hidden in her song. Go. Live. The path is waiting. With the last of her strength, she struck the floor with her claws. The stone cracked, breaking apart with a thunderous sound. Dust rose into the air, and beneath her body a hidden opening appeared, glowing faintly with an otherworldly light. The secret passage had awakened. It stretched down into the earth like a glowing throat, calling the eggs to safety. The dragon gently pushed her eggs toward the hole with her snout. Her touch was soft, even as blood ran from her wounds. She nudged the blue one first, and it rolled slowly toward the opening. The silver followed, glowing brighter as the light of the tunnel wrapped around it. Finally, she pushed the golden red one, her heart heavy as it slipped away from her. Each egg seemed reluctant to leave, as if they could feel her pain, but the lullaby guided them, pulling them forward into the tunnel's glow. The soldiers noticed too late. The eggs! She's hiding them! One of them shouted, pointing with his spear. They rushed forward, trying to reach the glowing shells before they disappeared. The dragon roared, her voice shaking the cave with fury. She swung her tail with the strength of a falling mountain, smashing soldiers against the walls, buying her children precious moments. Her wings spread wide, blocking the men from getting any closer. The first egg slid into the passage, glowing like a falling star. The second followed, and then the third, each one rolling deeper, their light swallowed by the tunnel. The dragon's heart ached, but also felt peace. They were leaving. They were safe, far from the greedy hands of men. She bent her neck low, breathing fire across the entrance of the tunnel, sealing it with glowing stone. No soldier would follow them now. The way was closed, the eggs gone beyond reach. The leader screamed in rage, his sword high. You fools! She sent them away! Kill her before she hides more! His voice was sharp with anger, but the dragon did not care. She had done what she needed to do. The eggs were safe. Her lullaby still hummed in the air, echoing down the secret path, guiding her children in the darkness. Her body trembled. Every wound she carried now felt heavier. Her wings were torn, her chest bleeding, her fire weaker. Yet she stood tall, her eyes burning like the sun. The soldiers might kill her, but they would never touch her children. She had given them life, and now she had given them freedom. That was enough. The men attacked again, their weapons striking her from every side. She fought back, her claws sharp, her teeth snapping, her tail smashing, but her movements were slower now. Pain filled her body, yet love filled her soul. Every strike she made was no longer for herself. It was for the 3 glowing lives now hidden in the mountain's heart. The cave filled with smoke, with fire, with the endless cries of men who thought they could win against a mother's love. The dragon roared again, her sound carrying not only fury but triumph. She had outwitted them. They would never find the eggs. The soldiers did not understand the meaning of her roar, but the mountain did. The walls shook, the stones cracked, and dust rained down. The battle raged on, but somewhere deep underground, 3 little lives drifted in safety, guided by the soft echo of their mother's song. And though her body grew weaker with every passing second, the dragon's spirit only grew stronger. She had lost much, but she had not lost what mattered most. Her lullaby had become a shield, her love had become a path, and her sacrifice had already saved the future. The soldiers believed they were winning, but in truth, they had already lost. The treasure they wanted was gone, hidden where their greed could never reach. The dragon had given everything, but in that loss she had gained victory. Her wings lowered slowly, her breathing rough, but her eyes still glowed with fire. She faced the army, ready for whatever came next. She had no fear left because her children were safe, and that was her greatest triumph. The cave was shaking with the sound of battle. Smoke burned in the air, mixing with the smell of blood and fire. The mother dragon stood tall in the middle of the cave, her wings torn, her body covered in deep wounds. Her scales, once shining like polished gold, were now cracked and stained with red. Every breath she took was heavy, like the mountain itself was pressing down on her chest. Yet her eyes still blazed with light. She had done what mattered most. Her children were gone, safe in the hidden passage. Now she faced the soldiers not for survival, but for her final stand. The men shouted, rushing forward with their spears and swords. Their faces were twisted with both fear and greed. They had seen the eggs vanish, but they believed victory was still possible if they killed her. Their leader screamed louder than them all, swinging his sword high, calling her a monster, promising his men riches and glory if they brought her down. His voice echoed in the cave, but his words meant nothing to her. The dragon did not care for gold, for glory, or for the men's pride. She cared only for the lullaby still humming in her heart, the lullaby that now belonged to her children. The first wave of soldiers charged, their spears shining like teeth in the firelight. The dragon opened her mouth and released a blast of flame. Fire roared across the cave, swallowing men whole, melting steel, turning wood into ash. The screams filled the air, but more men pushed forward, climbing over the bodies of their fallen. They did not stop. They could not stop. Her tail lashed across the floor, sweeping 5 men into the wall with a sickening crack. Stones broke loose from the ceiling, tumbling down, crushing 2 more. Her claws came down like thunder, ripping through shields, snapping weapons like twigs. The cave was a storm, and she was its heart. Yet even storms grow weak. Every strike she made cost her strength, and blood poured freely from the wounds across her body. The soldiers stabbed again and again. A spear drove into her side, making her stumble. An arrow pierced her wing, pinning it against the stone wall for a moment before she tore it free with a roar of pain. The leader shouted, ordering them not to relent. His sword gleamed in the firelight as he pressed forward, his eyes fixed on her head, dreaming of the prize that would make him a legend. The dragon spread her wings wide, filling the cave with her shadow. She roared, a sound so powerful it shook the ground itself. For a moment, even the bravest soldiers froze. Her roar carried fury, sorrow, and defiance. It was the voice of a mother, the voice of a protector, the voice of a creature who would not surrender even in her last breath. The sound echoed beyond the cave, into the mountains, into the night sky, as if the world itself should remember her. She leapt forward, her jaws closing around 3 men at once. Fire burst from her throat as she tore them apart, the blaze lighting the cave like a second sun. Her claws struck the ground, sending cracks through the stone floor. The cave trembled, dust raining from above as if the mountain wept for her. But each move drained her. Her chest heaved, her wings sagged, her tail grew slower. The leader saw her weakening. He raised his sword and shouted, "Now! Bring her down!" The soldiers obeyed, throwing their spears, striking with every weapon they had. One spear pierced her shoulder, another stabbed into her leg. She staggered, her knees buckling, but she did not fall. Instead, she lifted her head and roared again, fire pouring from her mouth, pushing the men back. Her eyes burned with a strange light, not just fury, but peace. She had done her duty. Her children were beyond reach, hidden where no man could find them. She had no regret. Her death was certain, but her legacy was alive. She stepped forward again, crushing a soldier beneath her claw, her tail slamming against the wall to bring down more stone. Even in her weakness, she was terrifying. Even dying, she was magnificent. The leader pushed through the flames, his sword glowing from the heat. He raised it high and struck at her chest. The blade cut deep, deeper than any wound before. The dragon roared in agony, the sound shaking the stones loose, but she did not collapse. Her eyes locked on him, her golden gaze burning into his soul. With the last of her strength, she lifted her claw and struck him down. His body flew across the cave, his sword clattering to the ground. The soldiers gasped. Their leader was broken, lying motionless. Fear spread through them like fire through dry grass. For the first time, their courage cracked. Some stepped back. Some dropped their weapons, their voices trembling. They had thought themselves hunters, but now they saw the truth. They were only prey standing before a legend. The mother dragon's chest rose and fell, each breath slower than the last. Her wings trembled, her body swayed. Blood pooled beneath her, steaming as it touched the heated stone. She looked once more at the place where the tunnel had been, sealed by her flames. Though it was hidden, she could still feel them. Her children, her little hatchlings, her lullaby echoed faintly in her heart, and she let it carry her strength to them. The cave grew silent for a moment. The soldiers dared not move closer. The dragon stood tall despite her wounds, her eyes burning like suns in the smoky darkness. She was not defeated, not yet. She would stand until her last breath, and when that breath came, it would shake the earth. Far below the mountain, the hidden tunnel glowed faintly with a soft, magical light. The eggs rolled gently down the smooth path, safe from the noise of battle above. The earth trembled with every roar, but the tunnel held strong, guiding them deeper and deeper into the heart of the mountain. The mother's lullaby still lingered in the air, echoing softly in the stone walls. It was as if her voice itself had wrapped around them, protecting them in the dark. The blue egg rolled ahead, glowing like a piece of the night sky. The silver egg followed, its light bright and pure, like a star shining in endless darkness. The golden red egg came last, flickering with fire, warm against the cold stone. Together they moved forward, cradled by the magic of their mother's song. Time seemed to slow inside the tunnel. There was no shouting of soldiers, no clash of swords, no burning smoke. There was only silence, broken by the faint hum of the lullaby. The eggs trembled faintly as if something inside them was stirring, waking. The lullaby whispered, calling to them, promising them safety, promising them love. Then, slowly, cracks began to form. The blue egg shivered first. A thin line appeared across its shell, glowing brighter with each second. The sound was small, like the breaking of glass, but in the silence of the tunnel it was loud and clear. The silver egg trembled next, a web of light spreading across its shell. The golden red egg shook with heat, little sparks glowing from within. The lullaby wrapped around them, urging them on. The first shell broke. A tiny claw poked through the blue egg, scratching its way into the world. Then a small head pushed out, scales shining like pieces of the ocean under moonlight. The hatchling was weak, trembling, its eyes closed tight, but it let out a soft cry, a sound full of life. The silver egg cracked open next. The hatchling inside was smaller, but its scales shone like polished stars. It blinked with wide, curious eyes, its voice thin and soft, answering the cry of its sibling. Finally, the golden red egg burst apart with sparks of light. From it crawled a fiery little hatchling, its scales glowing like embers, its breath already warm with tiny flames. It roared weakly, the sound small but fierce, as if it carried its mother's strength inside. The three hatchlings lay close to each other, their fragile bodies trembling from the effort of being born. The tunnel was cold, the world was strange, but the lullaby was still there. It wrapped around them like invisible wings, filling their little hearts with calm. They pressed against each other, listening to the song, their cries softening until they grew quiet. The lullaby was not just a song anymore. It was memory, it was magic, it was their mother's love reaching through the darkness. Though she was far above, fighting her last battle, her voice lived on here with them. It told them they were not alone. It told them they were loved. The blue hatchling stretched its tiny wings, flapping weakly. The silver one nuzzled close, its soft scales glowing faintly in the dark. The golden red hatchling lifted its head and let out another small roar, fire sparking at the edge of its mouth. They were weak, helpless, but alive, and in their little hearts the lullaby beat like a second heartbeat. Outside the tunnel, the mountain shook again. The sounds of battle were distant but still there. The clash of steel, the roar of their mother. The hatchlings could not see her, but they felt her. Every rumble of the earth carried her presence. Every echo of the lullaby reminded them of her strength. As the hatchlings huddled together, the tunnel began to close behind them. The stones shifted, sealing the path they had taken, protecting them from ever being followed. The glow of the tunnel dimmed, leaving only their own light to shine in the darkness, but they were not afraid. They curled against each other, warm and safe, listening to the lullaby in their blood. The blue one yawned, its little eyes heavy with sleep. The silver one tucked itself beside it, curling its tail around its sibling. The golden-red hatchling stayed awake a little longer, staring into the dark, its eyes fierce despite its small size. It let out another tiny growl, as if promising to protect the others. Then slowly, it too closed its eyes. The mountain grew quiet. The hatchlings slept, but their dreams were filled with warmth. They dreamed of wide skies, of flying above the clouds, of hearing their mother's roar not as a farewell but as a call of freedom. They dreamed of her eyes glowing with love and of her voice, singing the lullaby that would never leave them. Above, the battle raged, but here, deep below, life had begun. The mother dragon's body might fall, her fire might fade, but her lullaby would live forever. It would live in the wings of her children, in their fire, in their hearts. The hatchlings stirred in their sleep, their small chests rising and falling in rhythm. The blue one dreamed of water, the silver of stars, the golden red of fire. Different yet bound together, their lives had only just started. The lullaby whispered one final promise into their dreams. You are my legacy. You will carry me in every breath, in every roar, in every flight. My love is your fire, my song is your strength. Live, little ones. Live. And so, in the silence of the hidden tunnel, the lullaby lived on, not as a sound, but as a part of their very souls. The world above might never know of their existence yet, but their mother had ensured one thing: they would survive. And one day, when their wings were strong and their fire fierce, the world would hear her lullaby again through them. Deep under the mountain, the three little hatchlings slept, safe in the silence of the hidden tunnel. Time passed, though no one knew how long. The world above changed. The fires went out, the battle ended, the mountain grew still again. But the hatchlings did not know of war or death. They only knew the warmth of each other, the glow of their tiny bodies, and the soft memory of the lullaby that lived inside their hearts. When they woke, the tunnel was dark, but they were not afraid. The blue hatchling stretched its wings, stronger than before, though still small. The silver hatchling lifted its head, its eyes shining like stars in the night. The golden red one, the fiercest of the three, let out a small roar, a puff of smoke escaping its mouth. They were still weak, still learning to stand, but each day their strength grew. The lullaby guided them even without sound. It lived in their blood, in their fire, in their dreams. When they felt hungry, it told them to move deeper, where fresh water dripped from rocks and tiny creatures crawled in the shadows. When they felt afraid, it reminded them of warmth, of love, of safety. It was like their mother was still with them, even though her body was far away, lying in the ashes of the cave above. Together they learned. The blue hatchling drank from underground streams, its wings catching drops of water as if they belonged to it. The silver hatchling liked to watch the crystals in the stone, glowing faintly as if the stars themselves had hidden inside the mountain. The golden red hatchling practiced spitting little sparks, proud of each burst of flame, though the others squealed and moved away whenever the sparks grew too close. They were different, each with their own gifts, but they never left each other's side. Days turned into weeks. The hatchlings grew bigger, their scales harder, their wings wider. They could climb now, clawing their way up the stone walls. They could roar louder, though their voices still sounded like children calling into the dark. And always when they slept, the lullaby returned. In their dreams, they heard their mother's voice, soft and warm. You are my children. You are my legacy. Live and remember me. Above, the mountain became quiet once more. The soldiers who had come for treasure never returned. Some were buried in the cave, others fled in fear, their stories twisted into legends. Villagers whispered of the night the mountain shook and fire lit the sky. They said the last dragon had died, her roar echoing like thunder, shaking the heavens themselves. They believed her kind was gone forever, but they were wrong. Deep below, 3 hatchlings lived. They grew in secret, hidden from the world, carrying inside them the fire of their mother. No human could see them, no hunter could touch them. They were the last of their kind, but they were alive. And in their little hearts the lullaby never faded. One night, as they slept close together, the lullaby grew stronger. It was no longer just a memory, but a vision. In their dream they saw her, the great golden mother. She stood before them, her wings stretched wide, her eyes full of love. She spoke without words, her voice echoing in their minds. Do not be afraid. The world will be cruel, but you are strong. One day you will fly above the clouds. One day the sky will belong to you again. When you roar, the world will remember me. My lullaby is your fire. My love is your wings. Live and make them fear the day they thought us gone. The hatchlings awoke, their eyes glowing brighter than ever before. They did not speak, but they understood. They were not just children anymore. They were a promise. As years passed, they grew larger, their wings spreading wide enough to brush the stone walls. Their claws could cut through rock, their fire could light the tunnels. They no longer looked like helpless children. They looked like dragons. Still, they remained in the mountain's heart, waiting, learning, growing stronger. The world above had forgotten, but they had not. Every roar they practiced, every spark of fire they breathed, carried the echo of their mother's song. Her sacrifice lived in them, and one day, when the time was right, they would leave the tunnel. They would rise into the sky, their wings spreading wide, their roars shaking the earth. The humans who had thought dragons extinct would look up in fear and awe. They would see the fire, they would hear the thunder of wings, and they would know the truth. The last lullaby of the mother dragon was not an ending. It was a beginning. The hatchlings pressed close to each other again, resting after another long day. The blue one curled its tail around its siblings. The silver one laid its head gently across the golden red one's back. The fiery hatchling kept its eyes half open, still guarding, still fierce. They closed their eyes together, their breathing steady, their hearts beating in the same rhythm. And in the silence of the mountain, the lullaby whispered once more. It was faint, but it was there, flowing through their dreams. Goodbye, my little ones. But not forever. Wherever you fly, wherever you roar, I will always be with you. You are my final lullaby. The story of their mother would be forgotten by men, buried in ash and silence. But not by them. They carried it in their blood, in their fire, in their wings. And when the world least expected it, they would rise. The lullaby would return not as a song, but as a roar that would shake the sky. For love never truly dies. It lives on in those who remember.